Title of the talk, I'm sure you know, as you wouldn't have come here, maybe. A few key assumptions here for this talk. I assume we have commercial intent, so we are not making art games for the sake of art. I assume we want to do this long-term and sustainable. And this is also from the perspective of an indie, and maybe most useful for indies. I'm not 100% sure, but it's an indie thing. I'm René. I started and run Bippinbits. We made one game so far, Dome Keeper, released in 2022. Was successful, quite successful, like 1.5 million players. And now we are making PWKK, Planetenverteidigungskanonenkommandant. Also a highly awaited game, quite popular already, with a stupid controller to match. I do have a big disclaimer before this talk. I won't bore you with 500 times saying, okay, this is my opinion and that's what I think. I think that should be clear. It's my opinion, my experience, and everything I say could be wrong. And especially it could be wrong for you. So you always have to think about, okay, what can you pull out of this? It's not a template for every type of game. If you want to make a grand strategy game, probably it doesn't work so well. And there are always exceptions also. There are plenty of games that, from my perspective, do everything wrong and still work out amazingly. That can always happen. And I like to be challenged on these things I'm saying. So if you disagree, please tell me. Okay, the whole thing I'm deriving kind of by how we made Dome Keeper. So I'll share a little bit about this journey from Dome Keeper. Dome Keeper was made as a game jam game in 3 days, initially. In a game jam, you make a new game from scratch, according to a certain theme, and usually in a short time frame. Yeah, and Dome Keeper came out of this. This was my first sketch, and this first sketch didn't even have the text. I just put the text on so you have an idea what my scribblings mean. And the game that came out of this is quite close, actually, to that sketch. So you dig for resources underground, you bring them up into your dome, and there evil monsters attack your dome and want to destroy it. So you buy fancy upgrades from your resources and shoot the monsters. So that was and after that you go back down and mine for resources again. So it's a nice little core loop, very fitting for a game jam. And with that, we had a lot of validation already. So we released the game after 3 days, as you do in a game jam, usually. And we already knew a lot of things. So we saw like the Ludum Dare ratings. They were quite good, but better than our previous ratings. The written feedback was on another level compared to the game jams we made before. So this was our 10th game jam. So we had basically a good baseline to compare this with. And we saw that people played it for ages. So it was intended as a 10-minute experience and people just played it a lot. So with that, we already knew, okay, this is kind of working well. So the game has something that the 9 games we made before didn't have. So we set out to basically continue with Dome. We had another project going at the time, but Dome seemed so easy to make because it's a simple game, and we already knew people want it, people are happy with it, people want more of it, so it was an easy decision to switch to Dome, basically full-time. Not really full-time, we were doing this part-time, but with all our focus. And then we built up to basically make a new demo that's worthy of a Steam Next Fest, because a Game Jam prototype is maybe not on a level. Yeah, so we did that. We didn't ever end up releasing this demo on the Steam Next Fest, but we released it later. So basically this demo was good enough to convince a publisher to give us money and make the game. With that we went full-time. And we released the demo on a whim, basically. On an event, we thought, okay, we have this old demo lying around, and we released it. And it went super well. YouTubers picked it up. Like, there was one YouTuber who picked it up, and for him it overperformed on his YouTube channel, and then other YouTubers also check, okay, what's this game? If I make a video on that, does it also overperform on my channel? So what suddenly happened is a big increase in wishlists. So it was, for us, it was a good week. It was a 57,000% increase in wishlists, which came as a shock, because I did try to market this game for nearly a year, and no one really cared. So, and then we released the demo, and then the game marketed itself, which was quite interesting. And we have this little bump here. That was Best Indie Games, Clemmy Games. Maybe some of you know him. Shout out to him. That was a really, really happy day. I thought we made it. I was super happy. Yeah, I mean, if you make 1 or 2 wish lists or 0 each day, and then you get a day with 170, that's insane. But okay. Yeah, and with this demo, we also had more validation again. We found that, okay, this game has broad appeal. It's not just the 100 game jam enjoyers who liked it. It's a few thousand people. It showed some virality on YouTube. So basically, it propagated itself on YouTube. We didn't need to do anything. And it seems, yeah, a lot of people have fun with this. As I said, not just this tiny, tiny amount. So again, more validation. Then we improved the graphics. I bought a spacesuit for Twitch streams. And then yeah, it looked like this. We released another demo that looked like this. That one we released on Steam Next Fest. And then released. Release was very successful. Ended up in the Steam top sellers, only for a short while, but it's still nice to be there. Yeah, and this is how the structure looked like, right? The jam game, then the refined prototype, the first demo release, the second demo release, and then the release. And what's important there is that each stage basically took progressively longer. So the jam game was 3 days. Then the demo that went viral, that was about 8 weeks of full-time work. And then we spent 9 months in production until release. And during that time, we progressively increased also who gets access to this. So very initially, of course, in the first 3 days, it's just us. Then we released it on itch.io, which is public, but a tiny public compared to Steam. And then we built a community and got also their feedback in, and eventually, basically, open access to anyone. And as I said, really importantly, there were all these validation points where we found something out about the game and factored that into our future plans, with the first decision being to make this game even. And from this, I kind of derive our framework. It's not, I'm not claiming this is like total new innovation or something like that. It's more of a documentation of how we work. And it's also important that we didn't think of this framework and then made a game. It's more of a formalization of how we made the first game and the games before also, and the games after. And really important are the validation points where we do decide, okay, do we kill this project? Because if we, worst case, if we release a demo and no one cares for this demo, no one will care for the release. So we might as well throw 6 months of work into the bin instead of 2 years or something like that. There's always a potential also to pivot the game in some way or majorly change it, but sometimes it can be an uphill battle. And I have a name here I called it Core Fancy, and maybe it's a stupid name, I'm not sure. But for me, it's important that this is not a vertical slice. It's the core of the game that looks fancy enough to share it. And for Dome Keeper, that was basically still the jam version visuals that took 3 days to make. And that's a big difference to a vertical slice that is basically feature complete and has like super polished content. Yeah, and of course there can also be this announcement in between. And what's also important, there's a framework, but it doesn't mean every game has to stick to it super closely. I'll share how it went with PVKK before I dive into the next topic. PVKK started as an old prototype that looked like this. Eventually, I asked the team, presented basically 7 game prototypes to the team and asked, hey, which prototype would you want to make? And there was one guy who wanted to make this, so I started this project with him. And we built the Core Fancy basically. So we already liked the idea, and then also we liked the prototype, but the prototype, no one got to play this really. But we already learned some things from it. For example, okay, the basic concept works. And we built the Core Fancy, and that did look better than the prototype. And this does look fancy enough to share it, but it has only a tiny fraction, maybe not tiny, but maybe 15% or so of the features of the full game, and way less content. So there's still a ton missing. And with that, we did the announcement. We made an announcement trailer, and that was super popular. And with that, we already had so much validation, basically, that we didn't need to check if anyone wants to play this. Like, there's enough interest there. Yeah, right now it just reached 500,000 wishlists, which is quite a bit, and also put some pressure on us to actually make a good game. Yeah, and basically, yeah, this is the main title, right? Don't ship the wrong game. So what's a wrong game then? And for me, I thought about 3 types that I commonly see. And the first one, and maybe, I'm not sure if it's the most common, but an undesired game. And that's basically just someone who sits down, makes a game for 3 years, never checks if anyone wants to play this, releases after 3 years or 5 years or whatever. Yeah, and then on release notices, okay, only 50 people bought this. It looks like this. Basically, this is the Steam follower graph. This closely relates or correlates to wishlists also. It's just an indication, basically, of traction. And what's important here is the low number in absolutes. So the graph itself isn't looking too bad, but the number overall is not good. And the symptom of this game is basically there's no positive validation. Metrics are bad, and then you launch to 35 concurrent players, which is not even super low. Like our first game had, I don't know, 3 players or something like that. Yeah, what are the causes of this? It's now validated. It just kept on being made until it released and no one wanted this. Or if it was validated, people didn't act on the validation. Because sometimes it's hard, like, okay, you released something and then like a demo, and no one wants to play this. Do you then really kill the project, or do you continue and hope that the right influencer one day comes along and then he sees the game or she, and then makes a video and then it goes through the roof? Like it's not an easy decision to kill a project. And how we avoid it is basically just with the validation points that I already shared. So if we know after 3 days, okay, people want to play this game, yeah, we can invest 8 weeks into making something better and release it on Steam maybe or on itch. And if we then see, okay, even more people want to play it and it shows like it's easy to market, yeah, then we know we can continue and people want this game. And it's very dangerous to not have these and go to release without this validation. Before I go into the next wrong game, I want to have a side note on what I'm not sure if other people also call it like that, experience goals. It's something similar as design pillars, but I don't like design pillars too much. Design pillars are often, I feel like, have this game design focus, and you need something much deeper in a way to shape a game. And they are, I've seen a lot of really bad design pillars that are very broad and generic, like this. Yeah, we have a 4X game, so our design pillars are these. And that's really bad, because that doesn't help, for example, the art department or the sound designer or the narrative designer to shape the game. It's no guidance. And yesterday there was a talk, I think in exactly this room actually, from John Schaefer and Dorian Newcomb on Civilization 5. And I want to put one example from them in here. And they could have said, okay, we make Civilization 5, one pillar is expand. But they didn't. They made something much nicer. Yeah, it's from them yesterday. I hope it's okay that I used that. I didn't ask them. And it's also a really bad image quality. Just like photographing an LED wall is not a good idea, it seems. And they put it like this. Instead of expand as a pillar, they said transform chaos into order. The advancement of a civilization takes a wilderness landscape and transforms it into a stunning cultural centers surrounded by beautiful gardens. And that's a really strong experience goal in my book. Because you know that has impact on design, on art, possibly on sound. And these are much more useful, I think, in directing and aligning a game. Which leads me to the second wrong game, a misaligned game. So it's a game that people do want, but what the developers end up making is something different. So somewhere there was a mismatch. And the symptoms of that is that there's lots of positive validation. You can see the follower graph rising and rising and then releasing with 12,000 or 10,000 or whatever followers, which is quite good. That's over 100,000 wish lists. And the launch day was also not too bad, but then you see on the graph it basically flatlined after release. And a healthier graph looks like this, that you have a slight uptick all the time. So what can be the causes of a misaligned game? The communications on the game can be off. It's not super easy to make a game and then tell in a super exact and exciting manner what game this is, and people read it on the Steam page and they can still understand it wrongly. We have that issue too, like with Dome Keeper. A lot of people say it's a tower defense, and it's not really a tower defense. Like if a tower defense is defined by 4 different things it needs to deliver, Dome Keeper does one of them. It's not removable. We are fighting this uphill battle in communications, but doesn't matter. It can also be that the developers didn't understand or respect the player sentiment. So maybe the players did feedback that a mechanic does feel bad, or they are not enjoying this, or that it's too hard or too easy or whatever. But sometimes as developer, like it's not also always easy to take a step back as developer and allow this feedback to change your game where you think you know how it should be. And what's maybe the most dangerous thing, because it's so sneaky, is, and this was also the case for this game where I pulled this graph from, they playtested their game nicely, but which helps a ton, keeping the game aligned, because you get this constant feedback. But they had this one group of players that playtested the game for 2 years or so, and the group got more and more hardcore in the game, and they got better and better and better. And when it released, no one who was a new player really enjoyed the game, because it was made for those 200 hardcore people in their Discord community or whatever. And that's a big risk, because you follow the feedback, right? But what's really important is the first-time user experience. You want to test this basically all the time. And how you avoid this? Again, first off, you need to kind of discover what your game is. What's the game? What do people like about it? You want to define experience goals, like the Civ 5 devs did. Like these experience goals set up early, they help the whole team so much in making decisions that fit with the goal of the game. And sometimes we think we know what game we are making, but then people get to play it and they connect with stuff we didn't expect. And then we should lean into these. So even if we have a clear vision from the start, sometimes just getting feedback will change that vision slightly, or the perspective on that game. Aligning the team, super important, but experience goals helps a lot with that. And then building the game. Yeah, you want to keep playtesting, especially first-time user experience. That's the most important playtest in my mind that can be done for any game. What helps us also is keeping it playable. So if we have a game after 3 days that's playable and that works, we don't break it on day 4 and then just arrive half a year later at something that's playable again, but we try to keep it as playable throughout that time as we can, because that also facilitates being able to playtest continuously. Yeah, when you build it, also check if the experience goals are still met. Like that seems kind of obvious, but in the depth of development, it can also happen that you lose track a little bit of what you set out to make. And the last thing that's also really hard is build for the players, and that's again not always easy in the sense that you have this vision of the game. And you can get into the spot where the players don't agree necessarily, that they like something else more. And I have an example of that on Dome Keeper. On Dome Keeper, you have these upgrades that you can buy. And I thought, okay, it would be really interesting if the upgrades generally do something very positive for you, but come with a slight drawback, some negative, some small negative, big positive, small negative. And then you have to weigh, like, do I really want this? And what's the cost of this upgrade? So I thought, yeah, that's a more intricate, more interesting design, and the players kind of hated it. They didn't like it. They didn't want to think these tough design questions. They wanted just the good stuff. It should be great and strong all the time. So they were not on board with this. And I changed the design. I stripped out the negative impacts, and people liked it more. And I thought it made the game worse in a way, because it's less interesting. But with two or 3 years distance, I think they were actually right. Because if I think about the experience goal for Dome Keeper, a lot of it has to do with keeping the game very accessible and simple. So you can take basically your mind off a little bit and just play as you wish without thinking too deeply. And these upgrades were designed to be thinky in the sense that you want to weigh them against each other. But that doesn't really fit super well into Dome Keeper. But I didn't see that back then. Yeah, and one challenge there is also that you have a pride as a developer usually, that you think, okay, I know what this game needs, and the feedback you get is also often relatively bad in a way, and then it's easy to dismiss this, like badly written or doesn't align with the game. But it's it's super important to digest this in a good way. And the last type of wrong game is overdeveloped. That's also one I like. Basically, there was a game there that was set up for success. There was a world where this game would work out greatly, but production went on, and the game became a 3 years project and should have been a 6-month project, and now it's bankrupt. The symptoms of that is, okay, again, we have positive validation, maybe not a huge amount, medium metrics, medium wish lists, a solid audience, maybe a little bit small, but you can make a game for a small audience. But we ended up making a huge multi-year project that has no chance of being profitable, even if the launch was decent. And potential causes for this is that developers just love the game too much. We do not, like after 6 months, maybe we got a good game, and if we would release it now, it would be okay. But then we want to have so much more of this game and do much better, and cannot let go, and it's not ready yet. Yeah, and then it becomes this 3-year project, and suddenly needs to make 6 times the money. It can also happen if there's very little production constraints, so especially if you do this on the side, sometimes it's easier to not find an end in a way. Or if you are extremely rich and just don't, no, I'm not sure. If you have a billionaire grandparent that funds your game dev adventure. Not sure if that ever happens. Or if you have an insecure or opinion volatile dev that redoes basically the game over and over again. Like there are these projects that go on for 9 years where you basically have 3 games that were made in that one game, and stuff was scrapped all the time, and you have the 5th combat system in the game, and it's still not good enough for the developer. And what also can easily happen, I think, is an overspend on art. Some games really profit from having great art, but some games get away with incredibly cheap art quite easily. And this is also not always easy to see, especially if you have a talented artist in your team. You want to utilize that person and make a beautiful game, but sometimes it's not really worth it, especially as art can quite balloon in the cost. And one example of this is this game. It doesn't look beautiful, but it was extremely successful. It's Schedule 1, and I don't think the game would have been basically performed better if the developer thought, okay, I need photorealistic graphics, I want real motion, face animations, I need Unreal Engine to make this, and I want to spend 3 years to make it look perfect. I don't think it would have fared any better, but it would have been way more expensive. So how do we avoid an overdeveloped game? We again have these validation points, and the key thing here is that we take the validation point and we let the validation point inform the scope of the next phase, and do that all the time. So if my demo didn't do well, maybe I want to go to release quite quickly, as quickly as I can. And if the demo did super well, I know I can maybe take a year or something like that, or 2 years until the release. What's also needed for that, or what's helpful for that, is retaining a prototyping spirit, the same spirit that lets you make a game in a game jam in 3 days, and the game is fun. Not basically keeping some ideas from that for production. Flexible scope is a necessity. Like if your scope is fixed, you cannot let the validation point inform the scope of the next phase. You need to be able to adjust this. And what also helps us is basically going by experience goals and not feature lists. Sometimes it's really hard to cut a feature because the feature seems cool, and then you check, okay, how does it relate to the experience goals? Like what's really key to the player experience on this game? And you notice, okay, it doesn't pay into those goals. And then it's easy to cut. Okay. These were 3 types of wrong games, but I also want to talk about some specific things that I find also quite interesting. One is validating a prototype, and one is making a prototype. Because prototyping, I feel like, is maybe it's a super important phase, right? Ideally, for some games, you know after 3 days, okay, you have something that works as a game. And having a playable that works after 3 days is incredibly valuable. And you don't need to spend 2 years until you find this. Okay, how do we do this? There's only one way to find out. Oh yeah, I guess, so that's one of our gem games. And with prototypes, it's sometimes like that. You have a very needy one, you have one that's dead on arrival, and you have one that's very satisfied and fed. Yeah, okay, but if you want to validate it, you need to form a holistic view. And with that, we take as many sources as we can for validation, and we combine them to have kind of a full picture. And I don't think we can form a holistic view without releasing the game in some way. And I don't think you need to release or should release on Steam, but if you release on itch, potentially 100,000 people can play it, and you get a lot of good feedback there. That's actually our first Game Jam game. And that's the key thing, right? Let people play your game. Especially unfriendly internet people, like your friends and family usually are friendly to you, hopefully. But you want this harsh feedback. And the thing is also, we learn with every playtest. I never had, we do quite early playtests, and I never had a playtest where I thought, okay, this was too early, I didn't learn anything. I had plenty of playtests where I thought, okay, we should have done this 2 months ago. It's also quite motivating as a developer and helps you basically stick to the project, because if you see people really enjoying your game and wanting more and wanting specific things, that's quite a motivating thing. Yeah, you have these. I think probably everyone of us has said these or thought these at some point. It's not good enough, and in 2 months it will be ready, or it's missing key features, and the final game will be so much better. I don't want people to think badly about me or the project now. But it doesn't matter. No one cares. No one cares about the bad game in a sense. Yeah, you'll learn from it anyway, and it doesn't damage your reputation. As I said, we usually release after 1 week to the public on itch. That's just the jam mode, but not always. And we do not release on Steam. So to validate a game, to form a holistic view, if it was in a game jam, for us it's Ludum Dare, so a standard game jam, we can take a look at the results. And I want to compare 2 games here. Dome Romantic, which became Dome Keeper later, was basically this game. You already saw it. Oh, what's happening? Thought it auto-switched, but maybe I was fiddly. And this is the other game, Lavender Fields, that we made also in a Ludum Dare, so where you farm lavender there. And then you get these little animal friends that help you with the work, basically with the farming work. But then at night, these evil gnomes come, and they trample your fields, and they steal your friends. So you take your magnum and shoot them. Of course, obviously. Yeah, and that's also a cute game, right? And these were the results for both games. And we can see that Lavender Fields, on basically every aspect, was a higher rated game. So people played it and said, okay, this has 4.5 stars or whatever. And generally it did better. But the key thing here is Dome is the better game actually for us because it got way more ratings. We did basically the same amount of marketing for both, which is just like 2 posts, 3 posts on the Gem site. But this game pulled in so many more players, and we know we can improve this. So it's as long as the thing works, like it does have a good fun rating, not as good as this one, but we can improve this, and this game markets itself way more than this game. And we can do that basically continued on itch. So we released it then on itch, and on itch.io you do get ratings also. You do get these star ratings, but you also can look at how many ratings did the game get. And you also have collections on itch, which is basically just a free-form list of that you can make for any game or for any reason you want. And this is how it then looks like. Oh, is it the wrong slide? Oh yeah, it's the wrong slide, so I'll continue here. Basically with that, you know how often was my game played, and how many people did rate it, and how many people did put it on a collection. And with that you can build some sort of metric for engagement. And the assumption here is that if you really have an emotion with the game, and if you desire the game, that makes you rate or review the game, or you put it into a collection. Like the worst case is if you basically play a game and then you don't care. Is that something for me? Like, okay, I was confused. Like games that are bad, you download, you open, you see for a minute, and then you close it. And if you don't enjoy the game, you don't necessarily go to the rating site and give it 1 star. You give it 1 star if you care a lot and want the devs to make a better game out of this, usually. And with that, I built basically this engagement metric. And the key thing here is just how many plays did this game need to get 1 rating, and how many plays did it need to get 1 collection. And here we can see that Lavender Fields actually has a way better engagement than Dome. So it is a more engaging game than this one. But it got played 5,000 times, and Dome got played 200,000 times. And that's still a good enough game that can do well and that I can improve. But the validation here is that I can find out, okay, how many people want to play it, and then if they play it, how much do they like it? Because we also have another game, for example, that has decent amount of plays, but a really bad engagement. So a lot of people are interested in that game, they click it, but they don't really enjoy playing it. And Lavender Fields it's the opposite. Not many people see this and think, oh yeah, I want to play this. But if they do, they really, really like it. So maybe we have to, for example, change the graphics here, or the theming, or something like that. This is data, and data always needs interpretation, and data lies in a way. And we can see that, for example, the more plays a game has, the worse the engagement is. Because this game is usually found by people who enjoy this genre. And this game, if it's on the front page of itch, anyone can try it. And the player to game fit is lower. But it's tough to estimate. Yeah, it's the same thing again. Player comments is also a super important point to basically build this holistic view on validation. Sometimes we have comments like this: hey, it's a nice game, the graphics are great, it was fun, it's a cool concept, and the comment is friendly and polite, and that's a really bad game. The players do not really care about this, they are just being friendly. You want comments like this: bring this to Steam, expand this, when will it be on Steam? I played for 60 minutes and I keep coming back several days. I'm angry that there's no save system, and I demand this feature, you lazy devs. And that's actually comments we do get. And that's a really good game. Like, people are hooked. People want this a lot. They are not being polite. They want us to move here. So if people react like this, that's a good sign in validation. What can also happen if media picks up the prototype in some way, if you released it? I mean, anyone can play it. And we had that for one Gem game, that we had a rock, paper, shotgun article for the Gem game, which is very unusual. But is a very good sign, because that's somehow the game is newsworthy, hopefully, in some way. And that's positive validation. What I also find really important is YouTube. So first of all, does anyone on YouTube play this Jam prototype? If yes, that's good already. But then you can go one step beyond. You can check for this channel, how many views does their average game get? And here it was, for example, 20,000 views usually. Sometimes it's 40, sometimes it's 10, but it's usually 20. And this game for us did a lot more views. It's 400,000 views. And that shows one thing, basically, that the people who watched this video watched longer than normal. YouTube picked up on this. It's algorithmically driven and presented this video to way more people. And what happens then is that other YouTubers see this and they see, okay, I also want a game that does 20 times my normal numbers, and they will make they have a good incentive to make a video on this game. And that is basically a snowballing where the game markets itself. You don't need to write to more YouTubers in that case. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but it's a good thing. Then there's also this big question, okay, do we feel passionate about this game? Sometimes the game might do well, but we feel nothing for it. But if it stays in our minds for a long time, that's also a positive validation. And that's also super important. Also very important, do we have a vision for the full game? For this one, for example, we made basically what we could out of this game in the jam, and I don't have an idea how this game would look on Steam, for example. That's also a validation point. If you cannot really force that if it isn't natural. Also very important, do our skills match what's needed to make this into a full release? That's also a validation point. Sometimes, we actually have that right now. We made a small, slightly narrative game in a game jam, and that was okay. And then we tried to expand it, and it's super hard because we don't have, for example, a narrative designer on our team. And here we should have said, okay, maybe let's not do that. Also, talking about the game is really important. Does anyone know this guy? No. It's an author, Chuck Palahniuk. He's known for a lot of books, but also Fight Club. And what he does, a method, I noticed that with PvKK a lot. What he does when he has ideas for books, he goes to parties and basically joins a group and tells them a story that, like, if he was the protagonist from Fight Club, like he goes to this group and tells them, "Hey, recently I walked along the street, and then one guy wanted me to punch him, so I punched him, and then he hit me back, and I was angry, but it was also kind of thrilling." And then he checks if people engage with that. Are people hooked by the story? Do people add their own experiences or their own opinions onto this, or are they going like, "Yeah, cool story," and turn away? Like, that's already a validation, right? And you can do that with a game idea also. And for most ideas, I think people will not be very interested in this idea, but for some ideas, people immediately connect. And we had this a lot with PvKK, where we did not expect this because we thought, okay, it was kind of a silly game that's about pressing buttons. But a lot of people immediately connected with this and basically wanted to add their own ideas to the game. And that's a positive validation point. So taking all of this together, ideally should paint a quite clear picture if a prototype has a high potential or not. Okay, making a prototype. Before we validate it, we also want to make a prototype. And there I have basically just three small, maybe not small, I'm not sure, three things that help us make a good prototype. And a good prototype, I'm showing this because these are all basically 3-day game jam games for us. A more honest timing would be 5 days, 5 work days, because it's 40 hours condensed in 3 days. And what I try to show with this slide is these have relatively high polish for a jam game. And for that to work out, you need to be kind of smart in cutting corners you need to have an efficient process. You need to do something right if you want to basically arrive at a quite complete game in a game jam. And we have guidelines for that, and that they help us move fast. And one commonly known thing is keep it simple, but it's harder to actually do this. So if work is stupid and unoptimized, but it works after a few minutes, that's amazing. Speed beats everything. And that's not easy for artists or engineers to do, because an engineer also wants to write decent code, but you actually should write really bad code, or at least a stupid code. Maybe not bad code, but stupid. You need to be able to throw it away immediately. And I did this wrong on an older game. It was in 2012. So this was an old game I played as a kid. It was basically a Robinson Crusoe-like survival game from the 2000s, before survival was a genre. And I made this in 2012, right before survival became popular. So that would have been amazing. So I built this little island where you could walk around with this small creature or small person and harvest berries. But I didn't know how big my map would need to be. So I thought, okay, then I'll just build a flexible system. Then as a designer, I can change it all the time. So I did that. I basically built this chunking system in a quad tree, so I could have arbitrary sizes and I could expand it dynamically. And then I also thought, okay, now I have this height map. I'm not using that, so maybe a water system would be nice. And I did this, and then half a year passed, and then I was kind of burned out on the project because you could not play anything. I just had spent all my time building this technical thing, which was nonsensical. And the problem was I didn't know what I actually needed, right? I didn't know how big I should have made the map, but the right answer to that is I should have just assumed 1,000 by 1,000 tiles or whatever and just went with it and just make the most stupid system and just try it. And then I maybe would have discovered 200 by 200 is enough, and I don't need a scaling system that can have arbitrarily sized maps. And actually, a friend of mine, while I was making this, he was telling me, "Yeah, you will never finish this." And I said, "Yeah, I will finish it." But he was right. I did never finish it. And the thing there is, you have to clarify these requirements. Like, how big does the map actually need to be? And usually, you cannot do this initially, so you just make super simple stuff, make the most simplest assumption you can, and try it and play test it. Oh yeah, that's what I said. And I did it right in another example. On Dome Keeper, you basically have this dome, and below you have this big map where you dig for resources. And ideally, that should be fully procedural generated, right? Because every run in a roguelike should be different. And I thought, okay, that's probably a month of work, but I don't really know how the maps should look like yet. So what I did instead is I cut it up in slices into 3 layers, and I hand-built 3 variants per layer, and I randomly flipped them. And all my playtesters thought this was procedural, so they didn't know the difference. And that was a few hours of work. That was not a month of work. So I basically saved nearly a month of work before I could learn how this map actually works. And in the playtest, I understood like what makes a good map. How should the resource distribution look like? What size should the map be? And what are kind of interesting variations I want to make? And then I took a month and built the procedural generation. But I built it for what I actually needed. And otherwise, I would have, I think, built it in 3 months and then noticed, okay, this is not actually what I need. And these are GIFs basically from the run. Different maps. Okay, second guideline that I find really helpful. Before implementing something, I want to take a step back and think, okay, is there an alternative shortcut solution? And sometimes there's something that's way cheaper to make, but has a similar effect. And this is true for every discipline, programming, game design, art, audio. And I have one example. This is our second game jam. And in there you are this hamster, and you you get these children through some magical process. And you to feed those children, you earn these sunflower seeds. And I thought about, okay, as a hamster, so how does a hamster get these seeds? So probably there's some ramp where some person actually pours in sunflower seeds. So, and this was not with an engine, this was just a framework. So I took 4 hours out of these 3 days to try to fiddle with the physics system to have a ramp where the sunflower seeds would actually slide in properly. And then I noticed, oh damn, now I need also sprites for this ramp that I thought of, and I need it in 2 layers, so I need to explain to the artist how I need it, and then they have to make it, and then I have to integrate it. And only then I realized this is actually stupid. This is taking way more time than appropriate, like taking 7 hours to build a ramp for a game where it doesn't really matter. That's bad. And the alternative shortcut solution to this was, yeah, that's your wife, she's asleep in the morning, and then you go to work, and the alternative shortcut solution was, the stuff just falls in from the top. And that would have taken 0 extra time. Yeah, and that didn't do the game well, right? So I could have spent these hours on something else instead. Yeah, and sorry. Oh, yeah. And the key thing really is, if you think about a solution to a problem, is not jumping into this immediately, but taking the step back and thinking, okay, can I do it in a cheaper way that's maybe not equally good, but is 90% there, and then I can move to a playable faster. And the last prototyping guideline is 80% is enough. It has to be good enough, not perfect. Usually we can, in a game jam, make it just good enough with a tiny bit of effort, and then move on. And if we want to improve it later, if we have time, we can revisit it. And the reality is we have never time to improve it later. And there are very few exceptions to this, like player controller. That stuff needs to feel good, like how you move the player, basically. And I have one example from Domekeeper for this, from the loadout. The whole loadout was only supposed to be temporary, and I wanted to redo this for the final game, but I never got around to doing it. And if you look at this, maybe there's nothing obviously wrong. But there's something strange. So in the background, there's this world. And the worlds in Domekeeper usually look like this, much more detailed. And this is 3 hours of work. And this is 2 weeks of work, maybe. And the thing is, we put this in only as a placeholder. This was never intended to release like that. This was just a sketch the artist made basically to test out the layering of this world. It wasn't even intended to go into the game, but I needed a placeholder and I put it in, and I never removed it, and no one ever complained. And this is not at 80%. Like, this is not 80% there to this. It's like 20% in terms of effort. But we didn't need it, and no one noticed, and no one cared. And it can be kind of painful to see, like, how much effort goes into things that no one ends up caring about, especially with artists, like, and they like to say, yeah, but I care. And it's true, but if no one else cares, maybe you can put the effort into something that a lot of people care about. And that's what I meant before with retaining the prototyping spirit. Carrying this into production is also very helpful. Yeah, basically that would be the kind of summary of all of this. That's the end of the talk. Validate throughout the whole dev cycle, and that does impact your design and scope. That's it. Thank you, and let's discuss. So, any questions, challenges? We can start here. I can hear you, I guess.
Where does the devcom prototype fit in schedule for people kicking? You had a schedule of where prototypes are, where you validate.
Yeah.
Where does that demo? Where does the devcom 24
Basically into prototyping. Even before the demo or before the announcement, we would, if we prototype something, we sometimes take it to an expo. PVKK we took to several expos before we announced it, just to see, okay, do real people actually like it? But we would only do very cheap things. We would never do this at Gamescom, I hope.
Okay.
Hello. 1, 2. Okay. Really nice talk. Thank you very much. My question, maybe it's a bit multi-layered, but if you may say, how many people are working on a prototype? Is that the entirety of the team? And do you think this way of producing a game is scalable to larger teams or productions?
Yeah, in terms of how many, with PVKK we were only 2 people and basically 1 full-time equivalent because I wasn't spending most of my time on that. And then we hired a sound designer and 1 person to help on 3D stuff. And that took overall half a year, so maybe 2 full-time equivalents, half a year until announcement, until the game looked fancy enough to show. So that was... That's not that many people. And for the prototypes, it depends a little bit. Like some prototypes we made as 3 people, some we made as 6, but it's a 1 week investment generally. And okay, is this scalable? It depends a little bit on what the bigger production is. Like you can take arbitrary games to 3 or 5 years if you want, and make content for ages, like Stardew Valley or something like that. I said a big production, probably not, but you wouldn't want to scale the team to 50 people there. There's definitely a challenge in there for big studios. So if you have a 50-person team, it might be hard. But I guess Double Fine, for example, is also doing their Amnesia Fortnite, and they split into 4 teams, and then they have 4 prototypes or whatever. So I think there's a way, usually.
Thank you.
Hi, great talk. You said that you publish once your game jam is validated, you publish your first version after a week. Do you update this version, or is it just a one-off and then you take it off, or what is happening with this itch page?
Yeah, usually we do not update it. Most of the time we do 1 post-jam update where we just clean up a little of the stuff that didn't really get properly finished in the jam, remove a few bugs, but it's at most another week, and also not for every game, and then we never touch it again, basically. I did recently touch 1 game because people kept for 3 years complaining that the game would crash, and it was a 2 or 3 hour experience, and they were really angry. So I had someone look into this and remove a few crashes. But that's the thing where people get passionate about this game. There was a question up front. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for the talk, first of all. My question is, how do you deal with the thought of like this idea is not commercially viable or stuff like that when prototyping? Like, do you block it out entirely and just prototype something?
Yeah, I don't care. No one knows. No one knows if a thing is commercially viable.
Okay.
Maybe if you want to do a puzzle platformer, you already know it's not commercially viable. Or as Sokoban.
But then would you still do it? Or
No.
So the thought is still there somewhere.
No, it's more, I already know I would like to make a game that people want to play. And it's not about the commercial intent with the jam. It's more, okay, if it's a game that I already kind of feel like no one wants to play, I wouldn't try it. But other than that, no one really knows what will work out. And taking a week to test it is fine. And we, like, most of the jam games we make do not pass there. So basically no one wants to play this. But then we have a few that do where 100 times the normal rate of people want to play it. And yeah, that's a good validation. But we don't, you don't know, like, you never know. Maybe your puzzle platformer is so amazing that people do want to play it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, so kind of related to that question, but for someone maybe for whom it's expensive to prototype, maybe they have a full-time job, they need to do it in their free time, what would you recommend would be kind of the best way to validate before the prototype?
I mean, you can float the idea, right, to other people and see if they connect. But I also will argue that if prototyping is too expensive, then there's something else wrong. Then you also cannot make a game. The idea about this whole thing is to spend your time making sure that the time you will spend in the future is time well spent. So you want to put in 5 weeks initially to save 2 years of making a bad game that no one wants, because that's the really costly thing, right? Having a production for 2 or 3 years and then having no one who wants to play this. And if you can make a prototype, like you have this idea, so you could sit down and make it in 2 years. That's expensive. But if you can sit down for a week and notice no one wants to play this, yeah, you just saved 2 years. That's amazing. And if you find out, yeah, actually people want to play this, you have a great certainty and you will make a better game in the end because you already get this feedback in. So I would reject the idea that prototyping can be too expensive. Maybe if you take 4 months for a prototype, yeah, then yes. But then also, if you take 4 months for a prototype, the game will need 5 years. And if you cannot afford the 4 months, you can also not afford the 5 years. So it's kind of a thing.
In regards to the PVKK game, you showed us this like really simple 2D kind of prototype you made.
Yep.
Was it also like a itch prototype that somebody played? And did you like perform well? Because you just said that you talked with some guys in your team and you decided to make like this 3D version of it instead.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering, did anyone ever validate that idea until you made the trailer and people was hooked on the idea of the game?
Yeah, so the 2D prototype I did in my spare time. It was a 1 month prototype, roughly, and just on the side. And that didn't get released. It was never in a shape where I thought, okay, now it's ready to release. Where it had a complete mission or 2 complete missions or something like that you would have needed. But I already learned what I want to learn. Is basically, can it, like the goal for this prototype was just to find out, can this be fun just to press buttons and they have the super simple goal, and can it still be interesting, like the complexity that unfolds from that? Can it be interesting to play? And can it be rich in the design space? So I had already learned that. And then when we set out to make this, to continue this, we wanted to have a 1 month production to make the 3D thing. But then we discovered more and more interesting things, like, okay, we can make it in 3D, okay, and now it's a 2 month prototype. And then we can control this stuff, but could we even stand up and turn around, and what would we see? And then it was like, okay, now it's a 4 month prototype. But then we did build a prototype in like 3 months or 4 months, and took it to an expo to see, okay, if is this actually something people enjoy and people like playing, where people connect with the fantasy. And yes, they did so very much. And then we also very quickly made the announcement. We thought, okay, if 5,000 wishlists would be fine. If it does 10, it would be amazing. No one believed it would do 10K in the first month, and the 200,000 wishlists. So it was a big surprise just how much it resonated. But we still took this quite step by step.
Yeah. You released your game on itch. Do you have any tips for gaining attention to it, especially if these prototypes are the quite first ones you release? Yeah,
so if you do it in a jam game, the other people in the jam will play your game. And if your game is really interesting, it naturally also bubbles up in a way. Itch itself is also algorithmically driven. So if your game shows some attention. Itch will boost it. You can make GIFs of it, share it somewhere if you want. But usually it's more of the problem, like the games are not exciting enough to market themselves. And you also do not want to do a big marketing campaign around the prototype. So yeah, I don't think you have to do a ton. And if it doesn't get any traction, there's probably something not right with it yet.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, then thank you also for the questions. Have a good rest of the day.